After months of planning, the release team waits for a cold front to move across Florida. Manatees migrate to warmer waters when the temperatures drop. When that happens, the release operation is set into motion. It's hours of wet, exhausting work, and it's worth every minute.
So how do you decide when a manatee is ready to be released? According to Dr. Walsh, you have to look at a lot of things.
If they had some abnormality on x-rays like Pistachio did, then we'd recheck his x-rays, make sure it's cleared, make sure his blood work was all normal, and see whether or not size-wise he could go back out without any challenges from the wild.
When the manatee is ready, a whole team of experts gets together to figure out where and when to release it.
Everybody sits down together, agrees on a date, when to release him, what would be better, whether it's in the spring or in the fall, and we also decide where to release him.
But the final decision is up to the Florida Wildlife Conservation Commission and officials like Nicole Adamy.
Releases are very dependent upon the individual manatee themselves. The site is chosen depending on where the animal came from. What we try to do is we try to pick up and release the animal where the animal was rescued from.
And other times we have to take them far away because the area we rescued them from is really what got them into trouble in the first place.
Weather plays a big part in choosing when to release the animal. If the manatee was rescued as a baby, it needs to be released in the wintertime at a warm water site, where it'll have plenty of company. It's also important because the cold weather will force the manatee to stick around long enough to remember the site next winter.
Just prior to the release, what we'll do is, of course, take the last of the blood samples for last-minute confirmation that the manatee's okay. We get a weight on them, and all of this is mostly just for records for the state because after we release them, we'll go back periodically and check up on them.
When the big day arrived for Pistachio, he was ready, but it was still hard to see him leave.
You become attached to them. You have this baby that was only a few days old when they brought him to us, and you see him go through a really tough time where you thought you were going to lose him, and he pulls through that until you finally get to the day where he has to go home. Going on a release is a really good feeling. You see a manatee that was in very serious condition, sometimes almost dead, and you've nursed them back to health. Most of the times, it's just a happy feeling and you let them go and you wish them well. The ones that are a little bit harder to let go are the orphans that you hand raise, like Pistachio.
Over the next year, the state keeps tabs on the manatee with a tracking device, a kind of pinging radio transmitter. That way, they can monitor where the manatee goes and how it's doing. Some manatees are so badly injured that they can never return to the wild, so they go to special habitats for long-term rehab. But whether they're released or stay at SeaWorld, it's the caring part of animal care that's most rewarding. Watching a healthy manatee like Pistachio swim away into its natural habitat is the happy ending everyone hopes for.
After a period of time, he started moving out from the spring area and went out into the river that connected to the spring, and then moved up and down, hopefully eating well. It's a good feeling when you're there to see him go.
It's a really good feeling because you know that you've succeeded, you know you've done your job.
Pistachio is one lucky little manatee. I wouldn't exactly call him little, but Pistachio is lucky. He got exactly the right care at the right time from his dedicated friends at SeaWorld. And now he spends his winters in the warm waters of Blue Springs doing what manatees do. You could be a friend of manatees too. Learn all about manatees and their habitat. Support groups who are establishing refuges and encouraging people to act in a manatee-friendly way. Maybe if we all work together, we can save the manatee.
Pistachio is a wonderful success story, from the creation of his special formula to his ultimate release. But not every manatee is so lucky. Many are lost to illness or injuries. Some are even permanently disabled and can't go back to the wild. But the ones who can prove that sometimes rescue, rehabilitation, and release is more than a new beginning for these gentle creatures. It could mean a new beginning for the entire species. So, what can you do to help?
What can you do to help preserve the manatees? Well, actually, there's a lot.
Don't put stuff into the water that's not supposed to be in there. If you have old fishing lines, make sure you take those and throw them away properly.
There's a lot of organizations out there that are involved in manatee conservation, and you can always get involved with one of those. I mean, just get on the internet and look, and you can find them.
You can support education projects, you can support research projects. All those things do help the plight of the manatee.
You can be a safe boater. Obey all the speed and wake zones on the waterways.
We just need people to abide by the rules that are out there. You know, slow down where we know that there are animals, for sure. It gives them a chance to hear the boat. It gives them a chance to move out of the way.
Manatees are totally surrounded by boats. There's over 1 million of them on Florida waterways. Just imagine being on a street with that many cars.
There are so many boats around that having a boat around is normal. What is not normal is to have that boat at 50 or 60 miles an hour skip over their line of transfer, intersect where they're going, and hit them before they have a chance to react.
That's the whole idea behind the manatee caution zones, and that's why we need to support legislation to protect manatees and all our wildlife.
I think it's important that we just educate ourselves about wildlife in general. We want them to stay wild, and that is one of the best things we can do to help an animal out.
Pierce.
You can also help other people learn more about manatees by sharing what you know, and you can support the people who actually rescue manatees. One way to do that is to let them know if you see an animal in distress.
The best thing anyone can do when they see an animal is to call and report it right away. Either Florida Marine Patrol or call the Conservation Commission's hotline, and then to go and wait there until someone comes on site. And not to touch the animal, not to approach the animal, but wait for a professional or someone who's trained. They can not only injure themselves, but also injure the animal as well.
If you live in Florida, helping manatees can be as simple as buying a manatee license plate. A lot of the money goes to research projects around the state. You can make donations to organizations like Hub's SeaWorld Research Institute. And if you don't live in Florida, you can support local aquariums and wildlife parks.
We have some manatees that were rescued, and due to their injuries, they can't go back. When the public comes through the park and they see these manatees and they see the injuries that they have, it makes them aware of the problems that they have.
One of the things that we need to always keep in mind with an endangered species is that it never really ends. Even if that animal's numbers improve slightly, they're never out of trouble because we're constantly chipping away at what they need to survive. So it's up to us, working with the public, the federal agencies, and the state, to actually get to where we prevent the injuries rather than trying to come back and treat them.
I think one of the best things we could do is just think about what we're doing today, because it definitely has an impact on what happens tomorrow.
Sadly, the things that make manatees most adorable, their childlike curiosity and slow-moving, gentle nature, also make them vulnerable. It's hard to imagine our world without these amazing animals, but it could happen. It's up to all of us to protect them, and not just manatees, all animals, even the ones in your own backyard. And it's so easy. Start a neighborhood environmental club, recycle, boat slowly through waters where manatees live, and be careful about what you trash. Something that seems as harmless as a plastic bag can mean serious trouble for wildlife. So let's all do our part to protect these amazing animals, and maybe they'll be around for another 45 million years. Because if they win their fight for survival, we all win.